Okay, good morning, friends. Uh, Last class we discussed about the pulse amplitude modulation technique. First of all, just to recollect why these modulations are required. If you remember, uh, we had discussed when the signal is to be conditioned for amplification. Just please be attentive when the signal is to be amplified and when we use operational amplifiers, what happens is this signal that we receive from the sensor or transducer, when we try to amplify it through op-amp or operational amplifier, what happens is over a period of time there is a sort of drift that is developed at the output end of the operational amplifier. Now, what is this drift? We discussed the desired amplified output that we expect out of my operational amplifier that we don't get over a period of time. There are many reasons for this drift. Uh, Now, this drifting away, what is the meaning of this word drift? Drifting away from the desired value is the problem with this amplification technique. So, last class we talked about we discussed that there are two modulation techniques wherein we can minimize this drifting of amplified voltage. The first one was pulse amplitude modulation. What was it? Suppose you have a continuously increasing analog signal. We took a case of a thermocouple. Thermocouple is the sensor transducer. What it does is, from the chamber, or maybe the room is to be conditioned. From the room, it senses the temperature, and that temperature over a period of time, it continuously gives out as the voltage output, because the thermocouple is a self-generating type of sensor transducer. So continuously over a period of time, it starts giving me the output voltage. Now this constantly increasing output voltage, when the amplifier receives and when it amplifies it, what happens is over a period of time, there are some errors in the form of drift. Those are developed in the amplified voltage. So to avoid that, what we do is we chop down that transducer output voltage in the form of loops, the form of pulses. These pulses are, there is a chopping circuit, there is a pulse generation circuit, which will break down, which will chop down this analog voltage signal that I am receiving from transducer into a sequence of pulses, and then these pulses are modulated and these pulses are amplified. So what happens is the amplification I get, but the drift problem that I was facing earlier, now this drift problem is minimized. Similarly, that was amplitude modulation. So for any pulse train, you have the amplitude part, like for any wave, you have amplitude and frequency, isn't it? Or the time, amplitude versus time. Okay, so either I modulate the amplitude of the signal or I modulate the width of the pulse. Now today we are going to discuss the second type, that is pulse width modulation. Remember, we are in the chapter of signal conditioning. We have studied transducer. The transducer has converted the physical parameter into some convenient electrical signal or electronic signal. Now this electronic signal is to be conditioned for various purposes. Now we discussed all those things. I'm just revising those things. Either I can compare this sensor signal with my set value, so I can use op-amp as a comparator, or I can amplify that signal, or I can filter that signal as per my requirement. So all these circuits we already discussed. Now this is the extension of the amplification part. To reduce the drifting problem, we make use of pulse amplitude modulation and pulse width modulation. So in pulse width modulation, as I said, I have a continuously varying input signal which I am receiving from the transducer, isn't it? That continuously increasing with respect to time. That is the analog signal that I am getting at the input of my pulse width modulator. Once again, I chop down that voltage in the form of series of pulses. Now these pulses are the representatives of the input voltage. Now this input voltage is representative of output voltage from the transducer. Now I will amplify it, filter it, condition it, and then I send it to either the microprocessor or a controller or to the actuator, isn't it? So please be attentive. Now in pulse width modulation, what we do is the width of the pulse is altered. So what happened? What I done? Continuous voltage I have chopped down into pulses. I have chopped down it into pulses. So I have got a pulse train. Okay, focus on this figure. I have got a pulse train. Now each pulse corresponds to a cycle, a peak, negative peak, isn't it? This is one cycle. This is called as one cycle. So what I do in pulse width modulation, if I consider a duty cycle of 50%, so what I do is I just take the half part of the pulse. This is the complete cycle, positive and negative cycle. Out of this complete one cycle, I take the half part of the one cycle. So I am using 50% of my duty cycle. What happens? So the remaining half part I have left out. Okay. So I have modulated, I have changed the analog signal into a pulsed signal which is chopped by half. So this is the average voltage that I'll get. Otherwise, I would have got maybe this is my analog voltage that will be continuously. I'll just take a pen, annotate this spotlight. See, just by the side of this sketch, have one more voltage versus time sketch. The analog signal will be continuously varying, isn't it, with respect to time. I chop it down. So whatever was the average voltage of that analog signal, because it is a continuously varying signal, analog signal. If I take the average, now that average signal, if I want to reduce it, let us say, attenuate it, reduce it. So what I do is I convert it into the pulse form, and out of a single pulse cycle, I take the half pulse. So the average of that cycle will be this much voltage, right? So I have either attenuated, reduced the signal, or I can amplify the signal. Both ways I can do. So what concept I have used here? I have just altered the pulse width. Pulse width in this is what? This is the entire cycle. This full length is the entire cycle. Out of this complete one cycle, I have taken only the half cycle. So this pulse width I have reduced, right? Accordingly, I can alter my output voltage. So this is the average voltage that I have by using 50% of the cycle. That is called as 50% duty cycle. Now the second case, if you see, what I've done is this is one cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I divide this total cycle time into 4 quadrants, out of those 4 quadrants, I am taking 1/4 of the total cycle, total pulse cycle. 1/4, I am taking only 25% of the total pulse cycle. So here I was taking 50% of the pulse cycle. So what I have done, I have changed the width of the pulse, and I have taken only 1/4 of the total cycle. So I have changed the width of the pulse. I have changed the width of the pulse, as well as I have taken 1/4 of the cycle of the pulse. So this is called as 25% duty cycle. So what will be the end effect? The end effect will be in half cycle I was getting average voltage of this value, because the original signal was supposed to be, let us, having some value of 6 volt. Okay, original signal. Now after this pulse width modulation with 50% cycle, I will get average voltage of 3 volts. So I have attenuated it, I have reduced it. Similarly, I can amplify it also, 6 volts to maybe 12 volts. I can use it both ways. So in that case, what I need to do? I need to increase the duty cycle. I have to take multiples of duty cycle so that I'll get the increased voltage. Okay. Here I have reduced the voltage. I have the average is maybe 50% of what was the input signal. Now here the average is 25% what that of that was the input signal. If it was 6 volt, 50% was 3 volt, and 1/4 is 1.5 volt. So the pulse width in 50% cycle is half the cycle time. Pulse width for 25% duty cycle is 1/4 of the cycle time. And the end effect is, now this is the quantity of my signal. When I consider this amplitude, this is the quantity of the signal. Because I have eliminated 3/4 of the cycle, the quantity of the voltage signal will be less. So the average voltage will be, if you take the input voltage to be 6 volt, the average will be 1/4 or 25% of that input signal. So it will be 1.5 volt. So this way, this is the reduction part we have discussed. Similarly, I can increase the signal by appropriately increasing the cycle time, right? So I can consider more number of pulses so that I can have more voltage. So I can amplify it, or I can attenuate it, I can reduce it. So both ways it is possible. Now we are talking about the modulation concepts. Why we are doing modulation? Just to avoid drift. Why there was drift? Because of the continuous signal received by the operational amplifier, which is working as an amplifier. Over a period of time, the gain varies as per the input voltage condition. So this is called as drifting away from the desired value. That drifting we want to reduce. So this reduction and drifting can be done in two ways. First was pulse amplitude modulation, and second one is pulse width modulation. So what we did, just to recollect, what we did, the analog signal we chopped it down into number of pulses, and in amplitude modulation I changed the amplitude of that input signal, right? And the average output voltage was modified as per my requirement, right? So because of this chopping down, the drift effect is reduced. Just I told you the example. If I eat something in chunks, small chunks, I can digest it well. If I just take it as a lump, I may not be. I'll have my disturbed stomach. Similarly, the drifting away can be reduced by sending the signal through the amplifier in small chunks. Now these chunks are either amplitude modulated or pulse width modulated. So these are the two techniques we should know. Quickly we'll see the theoretical description that I have written. Pulse width modulation, please be attentive. Remember, I'm requesting you to be attentive simply because, friends, we are not in a conventional mechanical engineering class. Some electronic concept which we have studied earlier, but we need to brush it up. So please be attentive and try to focus on what we are discussing. So pulse width modulation is widely used with control systems as a means of controlling the average value of DC voltage. Thus, if there is a constant analog voltage and it is chopped into pulses by varying the width of the pulses, so the average value of the voltage can be changed. This is what is pulse width modulation. The term duty cycle is used for the fraction of each cycle for which the voltage is high. Thus, for a pulse PWM, that is pulse width modulated signal, where the signal is high for half of each cycle, the duty cycle is 50%. If it is on for a quarter of each cycle, 1/4 of each cycle, then the duty cycle is 25%. How I'm going to decide whether I want 25% or 50% is based on how much amplification or reduction I want, how much amplification or attenuation that I want. That will decide the duty cycle. Okay, so these are the two modulation techniques we should know. Next, we'll go further. We're going for the another converter, that is analog to digital converter and digital to analog converter. Remember, we are into signal conditioning chapter. We have seen the comparator part, we have seen the amplification part, we have seen the filtering part, we have seen the protection part. Now we have to see analog to digital conversion and digital to analog conversion. So basically, what would be the need? If you just try to recollect the block diagram that we discussed of a generalized mechatronic system, what we said, the task that is to be done by a robo as a mechatronic device, the task that is to be done by a robo, let us say, it has to pick something from one place and it has to place it at some place. So for picking and placing, I'll be having some actuators. Those actuators can be hydraulic actuators, pneumatic actuators, or motor-driven actuators. So if it is the case of a motor-driven actuator, let us say, I have a motor and a gear train, and the gripper is opened or closed depending on the motion of the DC motor that I'm using. And so that is the actuator part. Now that actuator has to receive, or the motor has to receive some input signal for it to run, isn't it? So that signal is given by my signal conditioning devices. We are backtracking, we are coming back. The signal conditioning device provides appropriate signal to my DC motor. Now what is that appropriate signal? I want to rotate the DC motor by, let us say, 270 degree. I want to position my DC motor by 270 degree, right, so that my gripper will be opened by 3/4. This is what is my requirement definition. So 270 degree the DC motor has to rotate. Now how the signal conditioning device will provide exactly 270 degree worth signal? So we have the correlation depending upon either the DC motor is maybe armature controlled or DC motor is field controlled. So either I vary the field voltage or I vary the armature voltage. So I know the relationship between the change in armature voltage or change in field voltage and the change in torque and the change in angular position of the motor. This I already know. The correlation between the change in field voltage or armature voltage and the angular position change, this I already know. So suppose the voltage is to be changed from 12 volt DC to 15 volt DC. Field voltage is to be changed. Now this signal conditioning device has to provide appropriate voltage change signal. That should be sufficient to drive the DC. Now how this signal conditioning will decide how much signal is to be given? It is dependent on the feedback that I am getting from the robo. Whatever is the angular position, whatever is the gripper position, I have some encoding circuit or LVDT circuit which will be giving me the angular position, RVDT circuit which will be giving me the information about the present angular position of the robo gripper. The present angular position is, let us say, 30 degree. So that signal will be appropriately converted into equivalent voltage, and that sense signal will be sent to my comparator. The comparator says, I want 270 degree, so corresponding to 270 degree, let us say as an example, I need to have corresponding 27 volt DC, and presently I am having 30 degree. Let us say 3 volt is the signal that is fed back. So whatever is the difference between the desired angular position and the existing angular position. So that signal will be the error signal that will be generated by the comparator. Now this comparator will generate that error signal, and this error signal will be amplified suitably so that this amplified signal will be able to drive my DC motor to my desired position, right? So this is what is the requirement, let us say. Now, the DC motor requires analog signal, analog voltage. The signal generated by the RVDT is also analog voltage. But let us say the comparator is a microprocessor. So microprocessor works on digital signals. So it cannot understand analog language, continuous voltage language. So my signal conditioning device, which is a controller, is my microprocessor. It understands only digital language, binary language. Binary code it can receive and it can give out binary output only. Okay. So the controller part is microprocessor which runs on digital logic. Now what is happening? My actuating signal requirement is analog signal. My sensor transducer is generating analog signal. Now this analog signal that is generated by my sensor transducer, if I feed it directly to the microprocessor, it will not be able to read it because it can read only digital signal. So this analog signal that I am receiving from the transducer is needed to be converted into digital form. Here comes into picture your A to D converter. So the analog signal from the transducer, which is the analog signal, is to be converted into appropriate digital signal through my ADC converter, and then the microprocessor will understand that digital signal, then process it as per my requirement, and then it will generate the output, which is all once again digital signal. So the controller, which is a microprocessor, is generating a digital signal. Now this digital signal that is given by the microprocessor cannot be understood by the DC motor. The DC motor understands only analog signal. So this output signal from the microprocessor, which is a digital signal, is needed to be converted into appropriate analog signal. So here comes into picture your D to A converter, DAC. Now this D to A converter converts the digital signal received from the microprocessor into appropriate analog signal, and this analog signal will run the actuator. In this robo case, it is a DC motor, and then once again the cycle continues till I have the desired angular position of the gripper, isn't it? So this is the role of ADC and DAC. Quickly we'll browse through. The output from the sensor. Sensors tends to be in the analog form where a microprocessor is used as a part of the measurement and control system. The analog output from the sensor has to be converted into a digital form before it can be used as an input to the microprocessor. Thus ADC is required. This is what we discussed. Similarly, most actuators operate with analog inputs. So the digital output from the microprocessor has to be converted into an analog form before it can be used as an input by the actuator. Hence, DAC, digital to analog converter, is required. So this is the need, or there is a need in the mechatronic system. We require A to D converters, we require D to A converters for proper functioning of each element of my mechatronic system. I think this participant is waiting. He has also joined the class. We'll quickly wind up, and next class will start with various A to D converters.